Right. Good morning, good afternoon, perhaps good evening, everyone. As bit by bit people are dropping in, we will start up this webinar. So welcome to all of you for joining, as we also expect other people to drop in. So this webinar, we're very happy to have you here. Today we have three presentations from different contexts on ecologically based rodent management. We have Pratik from India, Shadi Indari from Lebanon, and Yomi, who is from Myanmar, currently living in Germany but dealing with Southeast Asia. And I will also introduce each speaker to you before the presentation. So with this webinar, what we want to do is to put rodents higher on the food security and agroecology agenda. Rodents are often forgotten pest species, or perhaps they're too clever for us to manage, but their impact is huge, both in the field as well as in the storage, and even on infrastructure or machinery. And these losses directly affect farm incomes and local food security. Climate change, at the same time, is making this even more urgent. Changing rainfall patterns, floods and droughts, and extreme weather can influence rodent populations, while rodents are very adaptive and can reproduce quickly. So this again requests for a different approach from us. And that is where EBRM comes in. It's about understanding rodent ecology and acting at the right time, in the right place, and by working together. As a collective. It focuses on monitoring and prevention and coordinated action rather than relying on chemical rodenticides. If we are serious about agroecology and reducing dependency on chemical rodenticides, also rodent management needs to be part of that transition. At Meta, we see EBRM as a practical approach that is fit for scale. We recently published a position paper on this. You can access it through the QR code. And we here also describe EBRM as, or the perspective on EBRM on how to mainstream it as integral parts of agroecology and as a strategy towards food security. We hope today's session can also open up a new collaboration to take this work further. During this webinar, we have a Q&A function, so please use that for your questions, as we will have time after the presentations to discuss any of your questions or comments or suggestions. Meanwhile, I kindly invite you to introduce yourselves in the chat and to also share whether you have any issues in your work, in your field of work, or in your region. One other thing to note is that we will record this webinar and we will share with you the recording afterwards, and we will also share with you the presentations afterwards. With that, let us start. The first presenter is Pratik from India. He works with Meta and has over 7 years of experience in sustainable agriculture, biodiversity conservation, and rural development. He leads the India implementation of the RVO-funded agriculture transition through productive biodiversity and nature-based solutions program, with a focus on EBRM, agroecology, and the collaboration with farming communities and government institutions. So over to you, Pratik.
Yeah. So am I audible? So
yes.
Okay, perfect. So once again, a very warm good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. So today we are going to talk about EBRM, that is ecologically based rodent management. Yeah. So, I mean, before that, let's deep dive into like what actually is the current scenario on the field. So if we talk about India, like across India, the losses that are happening because of the rodents in paddy ranges from 5 to 20%. even across the globe also, the losses that are happening because of the rodent ranges from 5 to 25%. And in our current project location where we are working, that in India, that is in Jharkhand and Madhya Pradesh, we have found out the similar number, that is 15 to 20%. And even the estimated food grain losses that are happening because of this rodent is from 2.4 million to 26 million ton per year. And even today, like most of the responses to these problems are like either chemical based or they are largely ineffective. So this is where Gopa Meta Meta comes in. So our focus is on understanding the behavior and managing the problem through a simple, ecological, and community-led practices rather than this one-time control measures. And through our approach only, we have been able to bring down the losses to below 5%, which was earlier like 15 to 20%. So in the next slide, I'll basically show that what actually we did on the ground to basically achieve this. So uh, before I start talking about like how we implemented, I wanted to share that what actually we did on ground, like what are the steps that we actually followed. So we started with this focused group discussion, household interviews, and field visit to understand the extent of the rodent damage, estimate the crop losses, and learn about the practices that the farmers are already using to manage these rodents. And like based on these findings, we identified the key problems and mapped out the existing rodent management practices in the villages. We also engaged with the government stakeholders, government department to understand their ongoing initiatives and like how possibly we can collaborate together, like what were the opportunities for collaborating together. And like after the baseline assessment has been done, we identified the treatment and the control areas where the interventions and the impact assessment work could be carried out. I mean, we then developed an implementation plan based on the local challenges and the community needs. And the next step was basically the capacity building part, where we conducted like more than 50 plus different training sessions on the ecologically based rodent management, followed by distribution of the rat traps and the field implementation. And at the last day, where we are currently right now, we are currently in the monitoring and the documentation phase, where we are tracking the implementation and assessing the effectiveness of these interventions. So uh, in the next, I mean, in this slide, basically these are the interventions that we had carried out under the EBRM component. So if I talk about at the field level, we have conducted this burrow mapping exercises. We have installed the bird perchers. We have also promoted different agronomic practices like narrowing the bird. So like as you can see in the image, so this is the one that we took in Madhya Pradesh, India, where the bunds which were earlier wide are now narrow because of the training sessions that we had conducted initially. Uh, Similarly, if we talk about at the household level, we are promoting, I mean, we are providing different training sessions. We are promoting the communities to store the grain at a place where there is some light or at some height, or at some height. One more thing that I wanted to bring into your attention is that because of our constant training sessions that Gopa Meta Meta has provided, we have seen that many families have started storing grain at a higher elevated place. So this is clearly evident from the images also. And I mean, in the next slide, basically, I'm going to talk about like we'll further deep dive into different interventions that how actually we did this on ground and what were the results. So this slide basically talks about the burrow mapping exercises that we had conducted, followed by fumigation and flooding. So I mean, the two images at the bottom left shows the fumigation work that we had carried out in Dumka and other part of Jharkhand, while the bottom right image shows basically the flooding activities. So we have implemented these interventions with more than 100 plus farmers across Jharkhand and Madhya Pradesh in India. And what is important to note here is that, I mean, there is clear increase in awareness after these activities. I mean, during our recent field visit also that we conducted last month, when we asked the farmers that what do they understand about EBRM, the very first thing they told us was this burrow mapping exercises. So earlier, it's like we had to teach them step by step, like how to map the burrows, how to identify the active ones, how to seal them, how to do the flooding and the fumigation activities. So earlier, we had to teach them every step, like one by one. But now we are seeing that farmers are carrying out all these activities by their own. So this is the first intervention that we had carried out at a field level. Uh, Go to the next slide. So the next slide. So this is basically the bird purchase. So the second intervention. So this is basically the bird purchase that we have installed. Again, I have tried to show like every steps that we had conducted for installing it. So overall, we have installed like more than 250 plus bird perchers in the field. And the level of community ownership that we have found through this intervention has been extremely high. I also wanted to highlight a remarkable example from the last year. For example, in Samnapur block of Madhya Pradesh, we have installed only 5 bird perchers as a part of this project. But this year, without any initiative, without any support from us, that number 5 has increased to 55 entirely through the community own initiative. So they started doing it by their own. We don't have to teach them that how to do it. Now they are doing it by themselves. All these interventions that I'm talking about is like super cheap, and it does not involve any cost also. And this is one of the reason also, like, this has been strongly adapted by the community. So this is the bird purchase. The third one is like, this section basically highlights our work with the rat traps. So before distributing the trap, we have spent a considerable time engaging with the community to explain them the importance of EBRM. And it's like a dual level capacity building approach has been used to make them understand that, like, what is the purpose of basically the rat. For example, it's like the 4 image at the top captures the steps that we have followed. uh, Overall, we have distributed like more than 400 plus traps across Jharkhand and Madhya Pradesh. And like what truly stands out is like very next day after the distribution of the traps, we have started receiving photos and images from the field. For example, in the first images at the bottom, so what that farmer has basically captured 9 to 10 rats in a single day. Again, the remaining bottom images also shows the community members who have successfully used the rat trap. Again, this has this rat trap intervention has also been widely adapted by the community. Uh, this one is like very unique. So when we say like cats and rats together, so the question is that whether cats can create any noticeable impact in terms of rodent control, and the answer that came out was yes. And this is exactly what we have experienced in the field. It's like in majority of the villages where we are working in Jharkhand and Madhya Pradesh, we have found out that there are some families who are keeping the cats to primarily manage this rodents. Example, it's like the 3 images shows the exact scenario. In Dumka, we have found out that families have kept 4 cats basically to deal with this rodent issues. And similar examples we have found it in Madhya Pradesh also. Although it's like the number of families that are keeping the cats at their houses is like very small. It's like just 2 to 3 families in each villages. But the impact that they have reported is like quite significant. So it's like these households have consistently, they have every time they have shared us that they face noticeably lower rodent damage compared to others who do not keep the rat. So these are few of the interventions. So I mean, if I have to talk about these facts and figures, so we also conducted a detailed analysis on the EBRM. So some of the key findings were that the annual average losses that the families are facing because of the rodent is was around 700 rupees. So this is excluding the crop losses, that is paddy and all. Also, it's like more than 90% of the beneficiaries have found out that the activities that we are carrying under this EBRN theme was very effective. Again, it's like 9 out of 10 families participated in all the activities that we have conducted under the EBRM. So this also shows that the community members, or like with the people with whom we are working, they are very much interested in our work. uh, it's like similarly, like 80% of the community members are now aware about the environmental damage the rodents can do, and like how to reduce that. So earlier it was like that they were not aware that how to control that, but now they are very much aware about it. We also did some field level activities in which we have found out that the burrow mapping exercise was like very popular, as I've explained in the previous slide, followed by this installation of the rat traps at their home. And now these are the exercises, these are the interventions. Now the community members are doing it by themselves. So, before I conclude, I just wanted to share that when we went to the field for the first time in October 2024, and ask the communities that what do they understand about rodent and how to control them, the very first thing they have told us that can this be controlled also. So these were the exact words, that can this be controlled. So this happened in October 2024. But after that, we did an intensive capacity building with those community members, helped them understand that it can be controlled. We did various field level exercises and explained them. Whatever I have explained in the previous slide. And so at this point of time in July 2024, if anyone go to the field and ask that the same question, that how to control the rodents, so each and every member would be able to tell one or two different ways. So this is something, this is our achievement. This is what we have been able to change the mindset of the community members. Again, one more thing that I wanted to highlight is that none of the organizations currently in India are working on managing this post-harvest losses that are happening because of the rodent. So from that perspective, also like EBRM is like very important. So this is a very short presentation from my side. So from here, my colleague Shadi will take the next part. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Pratik. Very, yeah, very interesting, especially what you mentioned in the end, like just the question, can this be controlled? But also mentioned at the start, we know rodents are there, but they're also quite clever species. So just the mindset only, or the being aware that there are ways to manage rodents is a very critical starting point. Thanks a lot, Pratik. We continue with Shadi. Shadi is a zoologist and independent consultant from Lebanon with broad experience in wildlife research, biodiversity assessments, coastal and natural resource management. And in this webinar, he will share his experience from co-developing and testing EBRM approaches with farmer classes in the mosaic farming systems of the Shuv region in Lebanon. Shadi, please take over control and over to you.
Okay. Thank you. And hello, everyone, once again. So, as Luiki mentioned, I come from a small country named Lebanon. And in this figure here, we summarize the landscape that we have in that. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you
Well,
again. I think you froze for a bit.
yes, it seems. Anyway, so we were saying that this diversity of landscapes provides us with a very high richness in fauna and floral species. So, sorry. This diversity of landscape affects the wild, floral, and faunal species, and at the same time, it provides us with a great opportunities to diversify our agricultural practices. So in Lebanon, we can grow the subtropical species, and we can grow the cherries and apple at the same times on the high mountains. So the sector is very important, but it's neglected by the government. We lack of adequate government support. We have a high production cost, and we don't have a proper marketing in the country. And one of the main challenges that recently the agriculture in Lebanon is facing is the climate change. So, as you can see here in a nutshell, uh, the snow cover or the snow residence time declined over the last 60 years from 110 days to 85 days. In the photos below, you can see a satellite image for Lebanon over 3 years on the same day. And you can see the changes easily. This warming climate affected negatively uh, the agricultural sector in Lebanon, especially the pests. And what we are talking about are the rodents. And this is a very important pest that is highly affected by the climate change. What we started with Gopa Meta Meta 2 years ago, we initiated through the Resolve project the work related to ecologically based rodent management, or EBRM. Um, the main objective of the project is to enhance food security by supporting local food systems through regenerative and ecological agriculture. What we aim within our core activities is to develop environmental solutions and to implement these solutions, to try them with the farmers. So we started with a survey. We targeted an area in central Lebanon named Shuf. It's a mountainous area. So the Shuf area includes 23 villages. We covered these villages through a detailed survey to understand the problem they face, to know more about the rodent problem from the farmer perspective. And in the graphs, we can see a little bit. I hope they are clear enough for you. We can see that 40% of the farmers, they claim that the rodent issue is a frequent problem. And another 40, they claim that this issue is seasonal, but still it's very important. The second bar chart below, you can see that 75% of the farmers in the Shuf area and across Lebanon, of course, they count on chemical rodenticide. So within the Resolve project, we applied different methodologies. We started, as I mentioned, Lebanon have a very diverse landscape. So we needed to create a unique approach to implement the EBRM activities in Lebanon. Certain techniques can be easily applied, certain others needs to be tried and amended accordingly. We started with the linear trap barrier system, or LTBS. This system requires a little bit of, how do we say, a wider land that is not very common in Lebanon. Lebanon has very unique agriculture that adopts terraces, narrow terraces. So LTBS was implemented in selected spots. The second point, we had different techniques combined together, applied in other areas, in terraces, etc. So, and we coupled these techniques with advice to farmers, focus group discussions, explaining that the essential, the key success of EBRM is to work together and to collaborate. So these EBRM techniques were coupled with a monitoring approach. So we were monitoring the abundance of rodents before and after the intervention, and we were monitoring the damage seen on the targeted species, which is the lima beans. Lima beans is a kind of a white, large beans that is grown in specific villages in the Shuf area. So as a result, in a nutshell, the LTBS, you can see it here in the photo. The LTBS showed very high percentage in protecting the fields. And you can see it in the bar chart where the density of rodents before and after is clear. So before we had a very high number of rodents, and after implementing the LTBS, the number dropped even to 0. So while in the polyculture areas, the combined methodology that we applied showed a certain success, but it requires more and more adjustment. This success allowed us to implement another project. So this year we have a project, we called it Local Step, to scale up the EBRM initiatives that we did in the Shuf area. So the 2 villages that we worked at last year, we continued working with the same farmer, and we added the list, of course, with the new farmers. And a 3rd village joined, we decided to join it, to put them together within the previous 2 villages. So the main objective is, of course, to apply once again the EBRM and to improve our capacity in controlling rodents and to spread the EBRM message among more farmers and among professionals. So this year we were targeting as well, other than farmers, we were targeting the agriculture extension services that are linked to the Ministry of Agriculture in Lebanon. And we were targeting in the trainings the professional farmers and the agriculture input providers, because the farmers, they count a lot on these input providers to for consultancy and for control of pests. We applied the same methodology as last year, and we are monitoring. We started already in deploying the LTBS in distributing the EBRM kits, the traps, and other kits. We will be monitoring very soon the damage on the cultivated crops, because this year we are not focusing only on lima beans. The third village, they grow stony fruits like mainly apple, cherry, and plum. Of course, with vegetables aside. So as I mentioned, in the photos, you can see the LTBS being deployed in the new village. You can see also some photos of the training sessions that we started recently with the team from the Ministry of Agriculture in the area. And very soon we will continue with the input provider. So these were the EBRM direct intervention on the ground that we implemented with GOPA Meta. In parallel, 2 years ago, we were able as well to implement one EBRM project, but that was using the long-term approach. When we say the long-term approach, we mean here, we talk about the conservation of avian and mammalian carnivores. This project was implemented in North Lebanon around a very important nature reserve. The activities consisted of a scientific component. So we did a baseline assessment of the rodents because we don't have it in Lebanon. We were following up over 12 months the population and species of the rodents. We did, of course, assess the predators that we have in the area. When we talk predators, we studied the mammals and the raptors. We couldn't study the reptiles, but the reptiles were included in the awareness campaigns. We did like 12 awareness sessions with the locals, with students, with the farmers, etc. And we tried to rehabilitate several corridors to allow these predators to move from highlands to the farmland and contribute into controlling the rodents. So within these two corridors, you can see them in the photos in the middle here. Within these corridors, we created two waterers because the area is a highland and it's a grazing land in summer for shepherds. So these waterers played a very important role for the shepherds and for wildlife, because in summer, there is certain conflict between wildlife and predators over water, and we don't want that. So we try to facilitate the activity of wildlife to promote it and going into the farmland. At the same time, what we did is we contributed in rehabilitation of injured raptors with the local NGO that owns a shelter in Lebanon, and we released 9 resident raptors in the area with the hope that to monitor them, but we couldn't deploy any GPSs. Hopefully in the future we will be able to release and release raptors with GPSs. Another activity that we did is to map, of course, the habitat, the vegetation habitat in the area, and to provide the nature reserve with needed tools. We are talking about camera traps, rodent traps, weather station, etc., that will allow the reserve in the future to monitor or to do their work properly. So here in the photos, you can see part of the carnivores that we were able to take photos of, starting with the large carnivores with the wolf in the bottom left, and above the jackals, foxes, stone martens, wildcats, etc. The next steps that we foresee is within the 3 projects is to continue collaboration with farmers and with national stakeholders that we created in the last 3 years. As well, we are trying to expand the advisory services with the farmers and through trainings or through field demonstrations. In addition, we aim to strengthen the collaboration with universities and to try to merge, as I mentioned earlier, the long-term and the short-term approach under the EBRM. So hopefully in the near future, we can try to create or design a project that joins all these two together and allowing us to document the results in a scientific and appropriate way in Lebanon. So in a nutshell, that's it from my side. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shadi. Very interesting insight from your side. I think especially you highlighted the interaction also of the rodent pest species within the larger ecosystem in response to other wildlife species, predator species, and how the conservation of water resources, for instance, also contributes to rodent management in a sustainable way. So I think that really also shapes the larger picture of how biodiversity is shaped by rodent management, but can also vice versa shape it, which really gives also the scale of rodent management. So thanks a lot for that perspective.
Thank you.
We continue with Naomi for the next presentation. She is an expert in rodent ecology and EBRM with extensive field experience across Southeast Asia and Sri Lanka. Her work focuses on how extreme weather events under climate change, such as heavy rainfall and drought, influence rodent outbreaks, and how that again has an impact on food security. And she will explain more on this and also how this knowledge can support EBRM strategies for farming systems. Naomi, over to you. Please take it away.
Thank you, Luika.
And
good morning.
One thing I forgot. Please introduce yourself in the chat or put your questions in the Q&A, because after the presentation for Naomi, we will have some space for discussion with all of you. So kindly invite you to share. Yes.
Thanks again, Luika. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Today I'm going to cover mainly for that how climate change had influence on the rodent population outbreak. So especially in Southeast Asia, and I will give you some example from Australia as well. So as we all heard from our co-presenter, so it's rodents are the main problem, and had a great impact on the food security. So in Southeast Asia, is similar with India. So chronic and post-harvest losses is 5 to 10%. So when we translate that into how much it lost is 5%, is enough rice to feed 280 million people. So that is the chronic pre-harvest loss. But we also experience with the rodent outbreak once a while. So when the outbreak happens, sometimes it lost 100%, and sometimes the 50 to 100% loss happen. And when I say that rodent outbreaks, so people for the farmers, sometimes they think that rodent outbreaks is random, but it is not a random, and that followed that the ecological and especially the climate patterns, which I'm going to tell you in a bit in a second. So for the ecological pattern, what are the ecological pattern for the rodent outbreaks? So basic thing is two things. One is the abundance of the food sources, and the second thing is the abundance of the refuge habitat. So for the food sources, we have problem with asynchronous planning alternate abundance of the alternate food source. For example, if for the Indian audience here, Indian researcher and Indian audience here, we are aware that rodent outbreaks happen 50 years, every once in 50 years, when the bamboo flowering happened because of that the food availability, and also that the wheat seed as well. I'm not going to touch these things in this presentation because I'm going to highlight mainly for the climate change here. So we are going to talk about the asynchronous planning. Usually that the asynchronous planning happen because of the rainfall changes is too wet or too dry. So in this slide, you will see that how that the asynchronous planning happened. This is the example slide from the Philippines. So in that area, when that the rainfall changes happen, in this case, so they have that the late onset of monsoon season. So when the late onset of monsoon season, the farmers, they need to grow their crops anyway. In the Philippines, the average rice acre owned by the farmer is only 0.5 to 1. So they mainly rely on their rice crop for their food. So when that the rainfall is late, this is their food. So some farmer they grow it anyway with that the available water. Some farmer they waited until the rain came, and some farmers they start doing it. So as a result, so we got that the different crop stages in the small place in one area. So that provided a lot of food source than the normal situation for the rats. So when for the rats, you know that, and Luiga had mentioned how can they breed very quickly, especially when they have the food sources available, and then they breed more than one time a year or the one crop season. So in that case, in the Philippines, the rodent species is Rattus tanazumi, is similar with the Rattus which you usually see in the house in India. So they usually breed only once a cropping season, but when this happens, they can breed throughout the season. So that's how they contribute to the rodent outbreaks with that the late onset of monsoon season. Oh, I think. So here is that picture that happened in 2009 in Bicol in the Philippines. So they have that the delayed onset of rainfall. So farmers they grew the rice in different places, as I mentioned in the previous slide. And what happened is 60 to 70% of the total village area, they grow the crop asynchronously, and then they have that 37 to 49% damage. I did not mean for the loss because this is the damage. And as we know, so rodents, rice plant can compensate after the damage. It depends on which crop stage they were damaged by the rodents. Then farmers can stay harvest, but not a lot of the yield. And when the farmer 10 to 20% of their land planted asynchronously, and we saw that 9 to 12% damage to the damage in the village. So the next slide, I will talk about Indonesia. So this is the long-term data. So our group, I forgot to mention, our group led by Dr. Grant Singleton, who acquired the name Ecologically Based Rodent Management, which you all heard so much in the two presenter. So we have done a lot of ecologically based rodent management in Southeast Asia and Sri Lanka and in Australia as well. So with that, the ecologically based rodent management, we were able to reduce the damage and the crop yield to some extent. But when that rodent outbreak happened, then ecologically based rodent management is needs more prediction model. So that's the reason we are now talking, we will talk about how we can predict the rodent outbreaks so then we can plan ahead for the ecologically based rodent management. So back to this slide. So this slide is from Indonesia, rodent damage. So as Shadi and their group has been doing, So in Southeast Asia, we also have that the rodent damage assessment system and monitoring system every year. But only one thing is, how do we need to use that monitoring system data and translate and implement it into the ecological based rodent management system. So in Indonesia, so in here it's a little bit small, but you will see that they have El Nino, they have an event rainfall problem, and they have the La Nina. So all that, especially with El Nino, so all that things happen, you will see that the small block here, blue block. So all that the damage, rodent damage area really hit up. So during that the rainfall changes problem happened. That's in Indonesia. And the next slide is in Myanmar. This is in 2008 when we did have, I am originally from Myanmar, when we did have a cyclone Nuggets. So we lost more than 100,000 people in that Nuggets during the typhoon. And because of that, all that the things happen. So we have a lot of land left over, and we couldn't grow the rice because of some of the farmer, they pass away, and some of the area it was flooded and it couldn't plow, or it couldn't transplant it. So then because of that, then other places they grew it anyway, and other places they just broadcast, but they did not care. They did not have enough resource to care the land management. So then that provided a lot of refuge area for the rodents, for the breeding, and that also asynchronized planning provided that the different type of planning and different type of the food sources, and that extend the food sources for the rodents. In this case, the main rodent species is Bandicoota cerevisiae. That is a little bit similar with Bandicoota bengalensis and Bandicoota indica, which you usually see it in India. So after rodents outbreak, 15 months after that, we have that the rodents are, after that the typhoon, we have that the rodent outbreaks problem around that the Ayeyarwady Delta area. So, and this is already scientifically evident provided, and we already published this paper. Oh, by the way, if you are interested more in ecologically based rodent management in Asia, in Southeast Asia, we have published a book from Kabi, and that will come out soon. So you will see that all the things what we have learned, what we have learned, and based on the success and failure story of EBRM. So that we can up soon. And same with that the post-harvest. So in India, they have done that the trapping inside the house. So we have done that post-harvest chapter in that book as well. So that's the advertisement. And go to the next slide. So based on all that evidence we have found in the Philippines, in Indonesia, and in Myanmar, so then we hypothesize that the rodent outbreaks, the rainfall play an important role, especially that the rainfall changes play an important role for the rodent outbreak. So then, especially for the crops, which really rely on the rainfall. So that would be so we would need the different approach for the Lebanon, because Lebanon is mainly for the agroforestry, and they grow the different crop in the upland area. But all the study I'm going to discuss is based on the lowland rainfall related crops. So then in my case is rice and wheat. So for the rice, yeah.
Please, you have 3 minutes left, please.
Okay, thank you. So that the rainfall, that hypothesis, we came up with the rainfall effect as a bottom-up regulation. So then what we did is we collected all the long-term population data and the rainfall, and then we match how that the rainfall changes can contribute to that the rodent outbreak population year. So that is in Indonesia and the Philippines, we have 25 to 30 years data. Basically in Indonesia, so the main is significant negative relationship with rainfall. That means when they have the drought, they have the rodent outbreak. In the Philippines, it's related more with the wet season. That is the positive relationship with the rainfall. So this is the slide from Australia. So in Australia, they happen very low Sidman rainfall anomaly. Then the rainfall came, then rodent outbreak happened. So in summary, we do not want to say that rodent outbreaks is a normal phenomenon. Rodents outbreak always related with the ecologically mechanism. So when we know that what the ecologically mechanism, then we can predict that the rodent outbreaks. So then we can plan better to develop that the ecologically based rodent management system before the rodent outbreaks come. This is the take-home message from our group. So thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Yumi. Sorry, I didn't mean to rush you much, but I think your message came out very clear that yeah, rodent outbreaks don't just happen; they happen for a reason, and these reasons are also aspects that can be monitored. What we know for us in water management or water resource management, there are flood warning systems or early warning systems for floods. I think your case or your research also makes the case that such warning systems are really appropriate and necessary for rodent outbreaks or growth in population. So thanks a lot for again that perspective, like a new perspective on yeah, rodent ecology. I think we learned a lot also about the species that you mentioned and the relationship with climate change. So now I'd like to open the floor for some discussion. There's at least one question on the Q&A, and I invite you to still ask your questions. You could also raise your hand. We can give you the mic and you can speak up. So that's the floor is open. I will start with the question. Frank, you can also put your question out there. I will give you the mic. Could you?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
it's really fascinating. Yeah, it's fascinating. All the presentations, really grateful. And the question I had was to Pratik, but I think it applies to all. Do we also see some uptake in, extension systems, in regulation, in basically setting up a proper sector for rodent control in any of the countries? I think it would be, good to know and take some inspiration from that.
Okay, so I'm going to answer this question from the Indian perspective. So, I mean, definitely our long-term vision is to move beyond the community level implementation and integrate this ecologically based rodent management into the existing government system. So rather than implementing EBRM as a standalone project, we wanted to become a part of the government program and extension services. And how we are achieving this, like basically to achieve this, we are engaging with some of the key stakeholders like state rural livelihood missions, which is the SRLM, the agriculture department, some of the well-known NGOs like Pradhan universities that has strong link with the government. And like these are the institutions basically that can play an important role in scaling the approach across different states. And to support this process also, as of now, I mean, we have developed like some of the technical resources like EBRM implementation manual, fact sheets, strong pilot evidences, which demonstrate the effectiveness of our approach. And we believe that this evidence will definitely facilitate policy discussion and encourage wider adoption. So overall, definitely our goal is to institutionalize EBRM within the existing government system so that it can be sustainably replicated across different rodent affected regions of India. Thank you. I hope I have.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Pratik. I want to invite also our colleagues from Lebanon, Adi Shadi, but Farah, you could also come in to share a bit on what Frank was asking. So in terms of also how to go beyond the co-development with the farming clusters, but move also to agricultural strategy level or the extension services, the input providers, because each have quite different interests and demands as well within this.
Yes, yes. So, hello once again. As I mentioned during the presentation, we, under the new project, a local step, we have the trainings targeting officials from different backgrounds, but that training is not about technicalities. It aims to promote the EBRM approach on a wider perspective, because in Lebanon we are facing for the last 5-6 years several challenges, and recently the war. So it's not easy to promote such new initiatives among the high level of stakeholders. So we are doing a bottom-up approach, and hopefully within the near future we can include at least the concept in the MOA strategy in the Ministry of Strategy of the Ministry of Agriculture, or other initiatives. So I don't know, Farah, if you have anything to say from your side.
No, I think you said it all, Shadi. Just like in this new project, we're trying to scale up a bit the EBRM approach that we just started in Lebanon. We just have to remind everyone here that this approach is very new to the country, and convincing farmers to transition to this approach is something that needs effort, and this effort needs to be combined, of course, with policy support and high-level support. So in this new project, we're trying to target a wider level of stakeholders, including extension, input providers, actors in the international development sectors, and others.
Yeah, I think it's always a combination in the work on EBRM, because I think the results all show that it's highly effective, but at the same time we have to acknowledge every farming system has its own functions of working and its own challenges as well, along with also the policy framework. But we really approach it as an integrated solution. I have two more questions, and I see Tadesse also raised his hand. So Tadesse, if you could put your question, and then we have the two questions, one by John and one by Farah. Tadesse, could you unmute and you can...
Yeah.
Thank
Go
you.
Ahead. Louis,
and welcome, Tadesse. Yes.
I would like to, first of all, I would like to appreciate this invitation for after a long time of meeting you, the team. I would like to appreciate again Dr. Frank, Luque, and from abroad and from Ethiopia, Nabros also, I think, in online. So I would like to present my appreciation for invitation of this virtual event. After this, I would like to raise some questions. First of all, I also would like to appreciate the three presenters that share their experiences and what they have been doing, especially Pratik, Shadi, and Naomi. Thank you. And I would like to, the first question will be for the first presenter, Pratik. I have seen almost all women. So what about the man? They practiced on how they're integrated with their colleagues or their husbands. So in our experience, as you know, Luke, both are practicing. They have practicing in the field, both in the field at a house level. So, what about that? I would like to some justifications. And the other thing in that the second presenters also, I would like to have there is different mechanisms they practicing to control rodents, but I couldn't see what about almost all practices are presented in at the field level. What about the storage and house level? What are the methods they are practicing at the moment? Yeah, where when I come to the third presenter, especially in our country, currently there is an El Nino event that's a drought. So climate change is a very treated problem in related to production and other consequences, especially rodent outbreak is a threat because of there is no rain, some especially in the north part and northeastern part of Ethiopia. So what you especially conclude some measurements you recommend for this type of special occasion or this type of climate change problems. Thank you. This is what I have.
Thanks a lot, Tadesse. So we can go first, Pratik, then Sharif and Yumi for the answers. I would like to request you to be a bit concise because I'd like to also still take the two other questions that are there. We will go a bit over time. If you have another engagement, thanks a lot for joining. We will definitely share with you the recording and all the information afterwards. Of course, we hope you can stay with us for 5 to 10 more minutes. Pratik, over to you.
So I'll keep it very short that in the current project that we are working, which is agriculture transition to productive biodiversity solution, we are working majority of the women only. But at the same time, I also wanted to highlight that whenever we are carrying any intervention, let's say at the field level and the household level, it's not just like the woman is only coming. It's like a group of men. I mean, both men and women are participating in the field activities or at the household level. So it's like there is equal participation from both the sides, both from the men and the women.
Okay, thanks, Pratik.
Okay. So, Tadesse, as I mentioned within my presentation, in Lebanon, the land are relatively small, so the harvest is small. So most of the farmers are selling directly to the market without having a large quantity to store. But during the focus group discussions, we always highlight the importance of applying the physical barriers, certain physical barriers against climbing, like the cones, the metallic cones, and of course storing whatever they want to store over tables, metallic tables or the like. So it wasn't a big issue in our case, according to the targeted crops that we are working on now. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Yumi.
Yeah, for
Yes.
the climate change, that's it. We have already documented around the world how climate change had an impact on rodent problem. So you can already have all the information. So when in the community or in the village, when something changes, for the cropping pattern changes or cropping practices changes or cropping area changes because of the climate change. So you have that, you really need that the monitoring system for the climate change. So is that the rainfall or the drought? So then when that happen, how that the farmer responds to the climate change. So then you have that the information that you need to raise that the awareness about the climate change's impact on the rodent outbreak population. And please make sure, I'm sure you knew that already, community action is the key. So community action, involvement of the different stakeholders, that is really key. Monitoring is important. Then the act with the community action is really, really, really important. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for these responses. I think on the last point, on the monitoring point, this is something we also work on a lot, and it's a very important point since it's also a gap in research. Nyomi, you mentioned there's like data from 25, 30 years back, but for Lebanon, this data is not there. Shadi himself was collecting this data at this moment or through the projects also we are doing. So there's quite a difference in terms of what is available as data on related to rodent ecology, rodent species, the habitat functions, and the impacts of rainfall and climate on this. I think there is a gap, while at the same time, there are two things. I think there's an urgency to include rodent monitoring and to also have, let's say, early warning systems linked to rodent population growth and rodent outbreaks, along with early warning systems on floods or droughts or any type of weather events. While at the same time, we also know already, also in Ethiopia, there are huge watershed campaigns where people know the best time to do rodent management. So that's in the lean season, before the rainy season starts, since population numbers are low and they're most vulnerable. So I think it's like a two times 100% approach we must take, that at the same time we should invest in monitoring and these early warning systems, while at the same time we should use the knowledge we already have and to say that, okay, when we've had a year with anomaly in rainfall or a drought, we can expect what to come next year, and we should prepare ourselves on that, even when we don't have a sufficient system in place, but we have the knowledge. So that is, I think, up to us, but also to the people in the countries who work on this topic and the extension services, together with the communities, the watershed associations, farming clusters. So I think it's really, both a more practical approach and a more, let's say, long-term approach that we should take at the same time. I'd like to, so that's just an addition I wanted to make. I'd like to put up the question by John Ademola from Rodent Plus Nigeria. The question is, how can we connect and assess funding to scale up EBRM in Africa, particularly in Nigeria, since this is well advanced in Asia? Perhaps, Nyomi, if I could invite you, if you have some insight from how this is happening in Asia, and then we can discuss also our experience in Africa and give some response to that as well, if that's okay, Nyomi. I know you have more of a research perspective,
but Southeast Asia or every country, as you said, Luiga, is a negligible, no? So policy never talk about rodents problem. So that is the problem for us to get the funding, because as long as policy doesn't talk about the rodents problem, it's hard to get that the investment or the help aid from the other country. So for us is we were fortunate because in Australia they have that ACIAR, Australian Center for International International Research. So they invested funding for the rodent research in Southeast Asia. So it's a long-term investment. So then our leader, Dr. Grant Singleton, he moved to International Rice Research Institute, so that will bring us more funding. So that the thing is that for us, first of all, we did not know how to raise the awareness of the rats. So then we got that the funding from ACIAR, linked with the ACIAR, then we spread our network with that the ERI, that then ERI had a funding from Switzerland. And then we have that the network with Germany and Europe. So for the Nigeria, so it's better for you to look for the people, for instance, like who are fanning in your country. So for us is we look at for the who are fanning because of we are rice, we grow more rice. So we go through International Rice Research Institute. So I think for us is we really need to target who are interested in the main crops we are cropping, and then who is investing for the long-term research or short-term development as well. So not only that the research institute, but also that the international NGO and international aid funding. So it's better to just look, just nowadays it's just type rodent research, who is funding for rodent research, and then you will see the people, then you approach. But better when that the policy maker speak at, no? So it's involvement of the policy maker is really important. I hope that we help for your planning.
Thanks a lot, Numi, for that response. Just one thing to add to John Ademola. I think indeed, like Numi said, an important aspect is the integration into policy as well, that it becomes a topic on the agenda, because now often it's not even something that exists in pest management in the countries, because, for instance, you have the pest protection services, we have the extension services. So there should be furthering of that knowledge to the farmers on how to do it. Then when we look at the EBRM methods themselves, they're all very low cost. There could be more collaboration involved between farmers, and also it takes the effort of doing that in your field to be timely, to do it together. But in terms of cost, I think it's largely low cost. But it requires more the effort from us as, let's say, researchers, but also other organizations, practitioners, organizations, community of practice, to be involved both in terms of implementing it and both in terms of putting it higher on the agenda. So we would be happy to also discuss more with you on this more specifically, because we also contribute through partnerships on this. So we're really open to start new collaborations, to scale up this approach also to Nigeria and then the other countries you work in. So we're very happy also to continue the discussion on this. 1 second, I have to mute. There's some background noise. Okay, yes. There's one more question by Farah, a question to Numi. You could perhaps do the question yourself, Farah?
Yeah, no problem. So my question was basically, I was reflecting on the factor you mentioned about asynchronized planting in the lowlands in Asia. And in Lebanon, it's a bit different, like the agricultural system is different because it's mostly polyculture and agroforestry, as you said. So a lot of crops growing together on small terraces, yet the fruiting period and seasons can be variable. So we also have asynchronized levels of crop harvest and so on, which is always a challenge for rodent pest management. Therefore, rodents have access to food, to shelter, to water throughout the year from different crops. And my question, it may be not a question, just a discussion to hear your thoughts about it, because polyculture is a good practice for sustainable agriculture, yet it is a challenge for rodent management and for pest management in general. So how do you go about this? What are your thoughts about it?
Thank you, Farah. So I have experience working for 10 years in upland situation. So upland situation provided as is in lowland situation, asynchronous planning happened because of the rainfall changes or the other things. But in upland situation, is normally it already provided for the asynchronous situation. So one of the success story we have done in the upland situation is the community participated EBRM. So then we have that as in India, they have done that the cropping calendar. So it is really important, cropping calendar, not only the cropping calendar, we have made that the map. So where the rats are staying in which time. So because the rats, they also move around because of the crop situation. So then we have that the map for the year, and then we see that, okay, so for the January to March, they live in here. And for the other time, they live in other place. So our rodent management system in that the upland situation is not fixed. We always changes based on that the refuge area available, food available, and where they live. Especially where they live is really the success story. The key factor in success story is that where they live when they are living in well. So then we included both our village community management, and we included the village community management as well. So if your land situation is close to the human dwelling, human living, and we also need to include that the village management in the calendar as well. So that's one success story we have in the upland situation. I'm really interested when Shadi gave the presentation about that the Lebanon situation. That's a great place to do the study.
Great, thanks a lot for that, Naomi. And I think between Lebanon and you, we will have some further discussion later.
Hope so.
There's one, yes, there's one more question. This is the final question, then we will close the webinar. This one comes from Pakistan, from Irfan. So the question is around the climate change. So I think again to you, Naomi. So in Pakistan, climate change is increasing the frequency and severity of droughts, while irregular rainfall events are also becoming more common. How do drought conditions compare with irregular or excessive rainfall in triggering rodent population outbreaks? And which of these poses a greater risk for crop damage in cereal-based farming systems?
So
Could
as
you
we
respond?
yeah, so I have showed that the last slide because of the I talk a lot in the beginning, so I couldn't highlight that the last slide of that the slide from Australia. So that was the paper by Peter Brown. So for the drought situation, usually they have the problem with that the rodents outbreak. It takes 6 months. So when the drought problem happens 6 months, then you have the rainfall. So that we make that. So when the drought problem happened, there was no crop. Then the rainfall started, everybody grew. And then that will take time, biological time for the rodents to grow that. But in the Pakistan case, when you have the serious drought problem, the question is how much land area you are cropping and how much asynchronous situation you are facing. So when you have that, so sometimes you don't really need that the long-term data. So you can do that, you can model that based on 2 to 3 years data as well. So within that, the 2 to 3 years range, you can source that how many drought you have experienced and how long does it take for the drought. And then how do farmers respond? Do they grow different crops? Or do they grow does farmer grow asynchronously, or do they grow the different crops? So that when you get that information, you can predict that the rodents outbreak will be happening. Then you can, again, policy involvement is really important. So farmers can do it, but for to get that the community action, community level, you really need that the awareness from the policy maker and saying that you have to grow the crop this time, or that community, you need to do the rodent management in this month and this month. So for the continuous drought situation, I'm not sure about that, because all the experience we have is drought, wet, not that the long-term drought situation. So if you have some more information and you want to know about how I would think, so I might need more information. So I will drop that my email address here. Just please feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot, Yumi, and another big thanks to all the presenters from today, Pratik, Shadi, and Yumi. Thanks a lot for sharing your insights. Yeah, I hope it was interesting to all of you, and I also really hope we can continue this conversation. What I will do is to share with you the recording, or share with you the presentation and relevant links for you to check, and we'll also ensure to share all our email addresses so you can get in touch with us. Yeah, thanks a lot for attending, and yeah, hope we can together scale EBRM in more and more countries. So thanks to all of you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.